Hello everyone and welcome to this session of programming with Java. In this session we are going to understand what do we mean by data types. Now data types are the different categories in which our data are divided. For example, consider we have a database of a class of students. Now in this database we have the name of the different student, the class in which they study, the age of the different student, the marks or the grade scored by them in their respective examination, and if they pass the exam or not. So as you can clearly see that the same database consists of three different kinds of values. For example, the name of the different student is an example of text values. The class, age and the grade scored by the student is an example of numerical values, and if the student passed the exam or not is an example of Boolean value. So we will say that three different types of data is comprising this database. Now in Java we have basically two different kinds of data type. The first one is the primitive data type and the second one is non-primitive data type. The primitive data types come inherently with the Java and are the most basic building block for any programming to begin with, and they are the most basic building block for the data manipulation to occur. The second type of data type are the non-primitive data type, which are some advanced in nature and they are like strings and arrays. Now in this session we will not understand or explore the non-primitive data type, but as our course will progress we will also explore them in detail. So the primitive data types are further divided into four groups, namely integer type, floating point numbers, characters and Boolean. So let's explore them one by one in detail. The first primitive data type we are going to study is the integer data type. The integer data type is basically used to represent positive and negative integers, and they are further divided into four different kinds, namely byte, short, int and long. Now this division is based upon how long integer these can store. For example, since the byte integer data type is 8-bit wide, so they can store small integers which ranges from -128 to 127. Similarly, the short integer data type uses 16 bits to store information, so they can store integers which are as long as 32,000. Similarly, the int data type uses 32 bits to store the information, so the integer that it can store can range from 2 billion. And similarly, when we have numbers which are very long, which integers such as representing the light year or any scientific notation, then for that purpose we use the long type of integer data type, because they use 64 bits and are 64-bit wide. The second data type we have is the floating point number. The floating point number are basically used to represent the real numbers for fractional precision during expression or evaluation or representing rational values. So for example, if we have a value of pi, then we all know that the value of pi is 22 upon 7, and in fractional form it is 3.14 when we round it off to 2 decimal places. So this is a rational value and we cannot store it using the integer type of data type. So for that purpose we use floating point numbers. Now floating point number are further divided into float and double. The float uses 32 bits to store the information, and that's why we call it as a single precision, and the double uses 64 bits for the storage of information. That's why we call it the double precision, or the precision it occurs is double in nature. The third primitive data type in Java is the character data type. The character in Java is basically a Unicode character. So first we have to understand what do we mean by Unicode. Unicode defines a fully international character set that can represent all of the characters found in all human languages. It is a unification of dozens of character sets such as Latin, Greek, Arabic, Cyrillic, Hebrew and Katakana. So for this purpose it requires 16-bit. In Java we have a 16-bit character types, and it ranges from 0 to 65,536, and there are no negative cars. The last type of primitive data type we are going to study is the Boolean. The Boolean has basically only two values, namely true or false, and they are basically the result of any expression or any condition that it is true or false. For representing any data type as a Boolean in nature, we have to use the Boolean keyword in the declaration of our variable. So that's all for this session. In the next session, we will see how can we use these different kinds of data type with the variable and how the variables are declared and defined. Thank you.